Do you constantly second guess yourself? Are you always seeking validation before you make a decision? Do you maybe even sometimes feel paralyzed by fear that you're going to make the wrong choice? If you answered yes to any of the above, this episode is for you. Let's go. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Get Into Flow, the Mindset Shifting Podcast. I am your Transformational Mindset Coach, Sabrina. And today I want to talk about something that is very close to my heart as a recovering people pleaser, as someone who sought external validation in all of her big life choices. I want to help you learn to trust yourself again. I had to reconnect with myself to trust my intuition, to listen to my inner voice. And I feel like a lot of us are lost when it comes to that. So today I'm going to give you some practical tools to start listening to that inner voice, but more importantly, to trust it, to trust that you have all the answers within you already, that you do not need to check with everybody you know before you make an important decision. I mean, yes, you could seek their advice, you could seek their opinion, but the only person who knows what's best for you is you. And let's learn to trust that you have that guidance within you. So, first, here's a personal story. As a people pleaser, as well as someone who had lost herself along her career journey, I left my corporate job when I was around 35, 36, and I had no backup plan. But that expansion and the creation of space allowed me to end up in this beautiful place where I could speak to you all from the perspective of a transformational mindset coach. So, putting myself back in that position before I left my job, the opportunity was there. It was given to me to consider leaving and being the people pleaser, as well as being disconnected from myself because I was experiencing severe burnout. I remember consulting or seeking advice from everyone around me, most importantly, my parents, because I love my parents and they've always been there for me. And more specifically, my father has always played the guidance role for me in terms of like, what should I do in business? He is a very successful businessman, entrepreneur, and so I often go to him when it comes to business related things. I will go to my mother when it comes to emotion related things. So I'm lucky to have each of them to help me in different ways. So this business decision I was making, I went to my father, and as expected from a business perspective, he gave me his feedback from a place of scarcity and fear. Whereas my mother gave me her feedback from a place of love and compassion and empathy. So I had two very different opposing views and opinions of what I should do next. If I had listened to them, first of all, how could I? They were giving me two different, completely different views. My father was telling me to stay in the safe zone, and my mother was telling me to follow my heart. Which one of them felt more true at the time? That's something that I needed to determine for myself. And I needed to learn to trust myself in my decision. And let me tell you, going against my father's advice was harder than actually leaving my job. Why? Because I didn't want to disappoint him. I didn't want him to feel like his advice wasn't being followed. But I had to make a decision for me because it was my life. And I had to also put into perspective that he was living his life according to his circumstances and his life experiences. He had not been in my shoes ever. And my perspective was different. And my perspective had value and it was valid. So I needed to trust myself to be able to make the decision that was best for me. And in that case, it was leaving my job. So that was my first experience with truly listening to my intuition and listening to that inner voice, despite what everybody else was saying around me. And if I can break down what was causing the self doubt, in addition to obviously having conflicting views, well, the people pleasing pattern of not wanting to disappoint my father by making the wrong decision and then having him be disappointed in my life choices or feeling that his daughter was not successful. Like, this is all people pleasing. This is all me wanting to make sure that he was happy with me and not necessarily me wanting to live my best life and be happy with myself. So self-doubt comes from being conditioned by these people-pleasing patterns. They're patterns that are set on that begin when we're very young. And we often meet these people pleasing patterns when we are afraid to disappoint, when we make decisions based on what others expect or what others would feel is right, and we don't trust our own instincts. So for me, the people pleasing pattern was definitely in the way of me trusting myself. Another thing that could come up is social conditioning. So as children, we're taught to follow the rules, please authority, don't ruffle any feathers, do what you're told, and of course, seek approval. And saying it like that, that's partly what contributed to my confusion and my self-doubt of wanting to please authority in terms of pleasing my dad, my parents, wanting to do the right thing. So we were unfortunately trained to look outward for validation instead of inward. And that's why often when we make these big decisions that alter our life, we're often thinking of what would others think? What are they going to say? What are they going to feel about me? And we forget to think of what do I really want? And another one is the fear of making a mistake. We all fear making a mistake because then it leads to failure. And if you're not seeing me right now, I did the little air quotes when it comes to failure. Because for me, failure needs to be rethought. Failure right now is seen as something negative, something bad. Failure is the best thing that could happen to you because it gives you an opportunity to learn. So let's look at failure as a good thing. But in this case, the self-doubt comes with, what if I make a mistake? What if I make this decision and then it doesn't work out? And that keeps us stuck, right? So making a mistake will hold us back from actually trusting what we want. So instead of thinking, what if I make a mistake? We need to start thinking, what do I feel is best for me in this moment? And that's a whole game changer. So today, what I want to help you with is to stop silencing your own voice to meet the expectations of others. How can you reconnect with your inner voice and build self-trust? The first thing we can do is consider a mindset shift. Let's talk about intuition and fear. Intuition is what they sometimes refer to as a gut feeling. It's an inner knowing without an explanation, without a validation. It's just a sense of knowing what is right for you. And that is very calm. It's grounded, it's quiet, it's a little whisper. Whereas fear comes from here. It comes from your head. It comes from the ego. It comes from the overthinking. It comes from the validation, the external validation, the expectations, the comparison, right? So fear will be loud. It will often be anxious as well. It will be the screaming, yelling voice that just craves that external reassurance and that always looks for worst case scenarios, or it's looking for validation or ways that you should or should not be doing something. So if your gut is peaceful, but your mind is panicking, it's likely your intuition speaking. Why? Because once your intuition speaks, your brain starts to get nervous. No, don't do that. Don't make that move. Let's keep us safe. This is why you shouldn't be doing it. There's a conflict there. So the first step is, how do you tell the difference between your intuition and your fear? So again, your intuition will be calm, it will be grounded, it will be a feeling that you just have within that you can't really explain where it comes from. Whereas fear will be head trippy and it will be loud, it will be overpowering as it finds ways to keep you safe. So often that's where you're going to have all the self-doubt, all of the ways why you should or shouldn't be doing something, all of the proof that your brain is going to look for to keep you in your comfort zone so that you don't take that step forward. And let's do a test together. So think of an example for yourself where, for me, I'll use myself as an example too. And if you could relate to it, great. If not, think of your own example, but I'll talk you through. So, for me, when it came to my corporate job, I was feeling drained for months. And when I thought of leaving, or when I thought of taking a break or being away from that environment, I felt a sense of relief. And that was my intuition speaking. The feeling that comes over you when you think of a different scenario is often the answer to your question, the solution to your problem. So if you're in a certain situation where you're overwhelmed, and then you think of an alternate scenario that then brings you peace, that is your intuition reacting. But here's what's going to happen next. The fear is going to kick in and start asking questions. But that's not possible. But what will so and so think? But I can't just leave my job. But I can't make a change. I'm too old. But where am I going to get the money? I need to live. All of these fears start coming in to keep you in your comfort zone because change is scary. So start to recognize the difference between those messages, between the sensations you feel in your body versus the loud, alarming ways that your brain is trying to keep you safe. So recognize that the relief that you had felt was your intuition and the panic is the fear. How can we start to trust that intuition? How can you start to lean into what actually feels right, even if it brings about something scary, which is change, and not let yourself get caught up with the panic and the anxiousness of the fear that, again, is just there to keep you in your comfort zone, is there to protect you in the way that it knows how by being loud and obnoxious. So, how can we start to silence that fear? Because it's coming about in a way that's not necessarily here to keep you safe in the best way. So it's here to protect you as it has been for centuries, but let's recognize that we're safe, that we don't need protection. So already, if you can recognize that the fear that's coming up is doing so to keep you safe, but that you can tell yourself, I am safe. I am in no immediate danger. My life is not at risk. I am okay. Your nervous system starts to calm down. And next, what you can do is you can start leaning in and listening to that intuition, that inner voice that's quiet, that's calm, that's reassuring, that's grounded. It's because it's coming from a place of knowing. It doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to yell. That's what's guiding you to your best version of yourself versus your fear-based dialogue, the loud voice that wants to just keep you safe. How can you start to learn to trust that inner voice, that that's actually what you should be moving forward with, and to silence that loud, obnoxious head voice? Here are 4 steps to get you moving in the right direction because this is going to take practice, especially if you're a recovering people pleaser. If you're someone who's used to making decisions for others and never making decisions for yourself, we need to start small. We need to start building that trust one step at a time. So the first thing I want you to do is really just to start with small decisions and making those small decisions without overthinking. Don't start with a big life-changing career move. We're going to work our way up to that. Start with, what are you going to have for dinner? And I'm sure even for those overthinkers and those who are not trusting their inner voice, you're already spinning at all the different options you have. And if you're cooking for more than yourself and you have a family to feed, you're going to start thinking of, oh, but what would my partner like to eat? What about my kids? They don't like this, they don't like that. And then your head is spinning and you're in fear of making the wrong choice because someone's not going to appreciate or not going to eat what you serve. I'm sure you can relate to this in some kind of way. So instead of making a decision based on what everybody else wants, I want you to just tune in. And if you need to physically put your hands on your heart center, close your eyes, connect with yourself, and just feel into, what do I feel like eating tonight? And let that guide your decision. The same thing when it comes to choosing an outfit to wear. Instead of, oh, what is everyone going to think? Or am I going to be overdressed, underdressed? Look at the closet and be like, look at all these options I have. Where am I going to start? I want you to really just, again, hands on heart and just close your eyes and say, what do I feel my best in? What do I feel most comfortable in? And now, here's the caveat. If you're going to a formal event and you feel most comfortable in sweatpants, please do not wear your sweatpants and say, but Coach Sab told me to do it. Okay. I want you to use some judgment here as well And make sure that you're appropriately dressed for the occasion that you're going to. The same thing goes if you're going to a yoga class and you feel best in a mini dress. Please do not wear the mini dress to the yoga class. Make sure that you are dressing for the occasion, but then selecting what to wear should make you feel your best. So try that and let me know how it goes. That's step one. And it's a practice. So every day, maybe even starting with breakfast, starting with how you make your coffee, starting with what you want to drink or when you want to drink, right? Just starting to tune into that inner voice and that listening to that intuition and letting that guide you. And once that feels good for you, I want you to try this next. Step two is I want you to get quiet and just listen to yourself. And this is scary for a lot of us because we don't often invite this silence and this quietness because it could bring up a lot. But this is what I want. I want it to bring up a lot. I want your inner voice to start speaking. And the only way you can listen is if you silence the external noise that often takes over. So this can be done by journaling. That's a good way to start. So I want you to grab your journal. I want you to take a moment, even if you want to hit pause, and just get grounded and ask this to yourself. If I wasn't afraid of what others thought, I would complete the sentence. If you were not afraid of judgment, if you were not afraid of living up to everyone else's expectations, what would you do? I want you to get quiet, to silence that external noise, to silence those opinions of others, and really listen internally. What is your intuition telling you? What is that inner voice guiding you to say? And maybe this is a practice that becomes something that you look forward to every day. So maybe 5 minutes each morning. This is a check-in that you do with yourself where you ask this important question. If I wasn't afraid of what others thought, I would blank. And the more you write, the more you just let it free flow in your quiet time, in your self-reflection, the deeper you will go with your answers. And the more you will reveal what that inner voice is guiding you towards. And then once that's clear, you're ready for step three, which is taking one small action. This is my method. I love just starting with one small action because, of course, you're not going to bite off more than you can chew. Because, of course, if you try to do all 20 steps, it's overwhelming. So, what is the one step you can take that feels aligned with your goal and will get you moving in that direction? So, for example, if you are wanting to switch careers, maybe you research a company that excites you. Notice how I didn't even go for apply because that's too far and that's too big. I need you to start with just opening your mind to the possibility of you finding a new job or a new career. And that starts with research. It's one step that feels manageable, that feels like you're stretching yourself out of your comfort zone, but you're not completely going beyond it. Another example, if you want to work on your people pleasing and you want to set some boundaries, how can you say no to something small today? Maybe someone asks a favor of you, and right away you're used to saying yes. But in this case, maybe you say, not right now, but I'll get back to you. So, how could you say no or start saying no in ways that feel right for you? This is going to feel like a lot at first, but this is why it's important to really choose the step based on where you're at. So it's choosing that one small step that you feel is maybe a little uncomfortable, but you're like, yeah, I could do this. Like, yeah, it's a little uncomfortable researching new job opportunities, but like, I could do it. Let me take 10 minutes and just see what's out there. And then once you do it, it's going to start building momentum for you. Because then you're going to be like, oh, that wasn't that hard. Let me take 15 minutes, or let me now maybe reach out to someone about a job opportunity. Oh, I know so and so who works in that industry. Let me send them a message and see if they're open to talking to me about it. So the more you lean into and take those steps forward, the more comfortable you're going to feel stretching your comfort zone and going beyond what you're used to. And that leads to future opportunities, and that will help you get further along your journey towards your goal. And the last thing you can do to help yourself, which is something that I love, is create a self-trust mantra. I often do this with my clients because we all have limiting beliefs that hold us back. We all have that thought that pops in our mind Every time we're about to do something that stretches us out of our comfort zone in order to keep us safe. And that can sound or look like, I'm not capable. What if I fail? I'm not worthy. What will they think? Right? So, whatever thought pops into your head, I want you to acknowledge it. I want you to say, thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I got it from here. I'll take it from here. And your new thought that I want you to replace that old thought with is going to be something that's going to propel you forward. And some examples can be, I am capable of making the right choice for me. I trust myself to figure it out. I don't have to have all the answers, but I trust that I will figure it out. Anything that you feel can help give you the inspiration and the drive to be able to move forward. This is your self-trust mantra. You can keep it close. You can just have it in your mind, and anytime you need to refer to it, it's a little boost of adrenaline, a little boost of positivity that can help you just get to that next goal. So now you have all the steps that you can work on, but I want to remind you why this is important. Well, making bold decisions is part of life. And if you only make decisions from a perspective of what will others think, then you're living for them and you're not truly living for yourself. So you might not realize it now, but you might wake up in 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years and be like, shit, I just built a life for somebody else. My life was built around pleasing others. And now, what am I going to do? I'm lost. I'm no longer happy. I no longer recognize myself in this life because my criteria was always based on them and not me. So, how can we flip that? How can we create a life for you and have you make decisions that align with who you are? And let me tell you, the action steps that I'm talking about, that's going to build self-trust. Every little action step that you take that moves you closer to your goal, to what you want, well, that's going to build confidence because you're going to prove to yourself that you're able to do it. And so confidence is created by taking action. And if you're someone who wants the confidence to know that you're making the right decisions, well, you actually have to make those decisions for yourself and move that needle forward. You need to move along on your path. And like I said, start small. Don't try to get to the end result right away, but really, what is that one step that you can make that's truly a decision for yourself? And it might be cooking dinner, having breakfast. It might be, what do you do during your break? Usually you go have lunch with the rest of the workers, with your coworkers, but maybe today you're going to decide to go for a walk and listen to a podcast. Maybe that's what you're doing right now. You're listening to me on your break. Well, make that be a decision that you made for yourself without considering what everyone else wanted you to do. That's what's going to then help you build the confidence to make those bigger decisions for yourself. So, what's a bold decision? Changing your jobs, starting your life over, moving to a new city, um, creating a life that makes you happy. That's a bold decision because it's going to go against what you want to do. You're going to want to make a life that pleases everybody else or that follows society's standards. We talked about conditioning in the beginning. You want to follow authority, please everyone else around you, make sure that you're on the right path according to what society says because we've been conditioned to believe that that's the path to success. Well, a bold decision is saying, F that, I make my own path. I create my own success. And what I've discovered is my success is being able to choose what I want to do every day in my life. Real success is being proud of the choices I've made because I knew that they were for me. Real success is being able to have my slow mornings, to create my own schedule, to work with the people that I love and that I want to work with, to choose how I want to show up and serve and be of assistance and help others through my own practice, through teaching, through coaching, through this podcast. That's true success for me. So you need to identify what success means for you, not by standards of others, not even by my standards. I gave you an example of what I view as success, but I want you to think of what is success for you and then trust that this is coming to you for a reason. And then trust that every decision you make will bring you closer to that. And trust that your inner voice is guiding you there. So let me ask you something. What is one decision that you've been postponing because you're waiting for someone else's approval? That happens a lot. You wait to make a decision because so and so needs to approve it for you. We often wait on these big decisions, or we're less confident in what we want to do because we're waiting for someone else to approve. Get honest with yourself. Ask yourself, what have you been putting off because you're waiting for someone else to approve? And I'm going to ask you to take it one step further. What happens if they don't approve? Are you going to abandon your dreams? Are you going to let that go? What happens if they do approve? It's just the external validation that you needed. How can we remove that pressure? How could we remove that external validation and just trust that if it's coming up and if it's a decision that you truly want, how can you make it from a place that feels good for you? And of course, if it's a huge life altering decision, I totally understand if you need to consult or confide in others or ask the opinion of others. And I'm sure everyone's going to give you their opinion. But this is why you can't take their opinion for face value because no one is living your life. Only you know what will be best for you based on your life circumstances, your experiences, where you're at, what you want. So, yes, everyone will have an opinion. And especially if someone's done it, if someone's in a similar situation to you and they've moved forward in a way that inspires you and that you want to get there too, their opinion will hold more value than someone who's never done it before. So, also being able to decipher who you seek out advice and opinions from. And again, at the end of the day, taking what you need from them, but not letting someone else decide for you. That's the takeaway that I want you to have from this episode. Don't let anyone else make decisions for you because they're making it based on their experiences, not yours. They're also there to protect you, most likely. Hopefully, if they're close family members, like my father, he was there protecting me to make sure I didn't make a wrong move by leaving my very certain, stable, safe career. And I totally get it. He wants me to make sure I make money and that I live, of course. He was giving me advice from that perspective. But I was the one living it. I was the one who was in burnout, who was miserable, who was lost, who was disconnected. And I couldn't expect him to understand that because he'd never experienced that before. And he's not me. So I needed to make my decision for myself. And so, again, taking everyone's opinion with love, with gratitude. Thank you for loving me and caring for me so much that you have an opinion on my life, but trusting yourself to know the best way to move forward. I think that's what we really need to focus on. Why? Because the more you trust yourself, the more confident and free you will feel. The more you're able to live your own life, the more you're able to live in that version of success that you're striving for. And I know I always say this, but it's so true. You have one life. So don't wait for someone else to design it for you. Don't wait for someone else to give you permission. You take action. And I want you this week, commit to making one decision for yourself without seeking validation externally. Trust yourself to take that first step and then see what happens. You've made it to the end. Thank you for being here. And I want you to now get access to a very short PDF guide that will empower you to build self-trust. This is an actionable tool that you can use to help you just get to reconnecting with yourself, to listening, to trusting, to really getting clear on what that inner voice sounds like, what it feels like, and to start listening to it and following through. In the show notes, you will have a link to be able to download your PDF guide, a guide to building self-trust. It's something that will help you along your personal development journey. If you have any questions, I am more than happy to be here to answer them, to help you, to guide you, to hold you accountable, to support you, all the things. But I really wanted to provide you with another tool in addition to this episode, but just a physical, tangible tool that you can take with you to be able to further build that self-trust within yourself. So go to the show notes and look for that link to download the guide or message me and I can send it to you. Once you have that self-trust, you could do anything. You will have the confidence to know that your decisions are coming from a pure place, an aligned place, And any action you take towards that will bring you closer to the goal and build the life that you know you deserve and you've always wanted. It's within your reach, but you just have to cut the noise, cut the clutter, and listen within and follow your intuition.